What if I told you that Carl Jung discovered a psychological pattern so dark, so manipulative, that recognizing it could save you from years of emotional destruction? Stay with me, because what you're about to learn will change how you see certain relationships forever. Carl Jung said something that will chill you to the bone: everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But what happens when someone uses this very principle as a weapon against you? According to Carl Jung, every human being carries what he called the shadow, those dark, uncomfortable parts of our personality we'd rather ignore. But here's what Jung discovered that most people never realize. Some individuals don't just carry a shadow, they become the shadow, crafting an elaborate mask to hide their true nature from both you and themselves. Carl Jung discovered that these people, what we now recognize as narcissists, operate from what he termed the false self. This isn't just putting on a good face for society. This is a complete psychological construction designed to compensate for feeling so inadequate, so shameful, that their entire identity depends on fooling everyone around them. But wait, there's something even more sinister that Jung uncovered, and if you've ever felt confused after talking to someone, if you've ever questioned your own memory or sanity, you need to hear this. According to Carl Jung, narcissists need you to maintain their illusion. Without your validation, without your emotional reactions, without your energy, their carefully constructed identity crumbles like a house of cards. This is why they can't just leave you alone. This is why they keep coming back. This is why breaking free feels so impossibly difficult. Carl Jung discovered one of the most powerful psychological mechanisms that narcissists weaponize against you, and once you understand this, every confusing interaction will suddenly make perfect sense. Jung called it projection, the unconscious act of attributing our own feelings, thoughts, or characteristics to others. According to Carl Jung, this is a natural psychological process we all engage in. But narcissists turn this natural mechanism into a psychological weapon. Here's how it works. When a narcissist accuses you of being selfish, they're revealing their own selfishness. When they call you unstable, they're projecting their own chaos. When they claim you're the manipulator, they're showing you exactly what they're doing to you. Carl Jung said that projection occurs when we can't face something about ourselves. But narcissists take this further. They deliberately throw their shame, their rage, their inadequacy onto you like psychological grenades. According to Carl Jung's observations, this projection becomes so systematic that you begin internalizing their accusations. You start carrying their psychological poison as if it were your own truth. Jung called this the infected wound, where someone else's pathology becomes embedded in your own psyche. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself apologizing for things you didn't do? How often have you questioned whether you really are too sensitive or too demanding? Carl Jung would recognize this as the narcissist's projection successfully taking root in your consciousness. What I'm about to reveal will explain why you felt like you're going crazy, why you've questioned your own memories, and why reality itself seems to shift around certain people. According to Carl Jung, our sense of reality is constructed through our relationships and shared experiences. Carl Jung discovered that narcissists exploit this fundamental truth about human psychology. They don't just lie to you, they create an alternate universe where their version of events is the only reality that matters. Jung observed that this systematic dismantling of your connection to your own inner knowing is one of the most devastating psychological attacks possible. They'll say, "That never happened, you're being too sensitive," or "you're remembering it wrong." Carl Jung understood that these aren't just contradictions. They're deliberate attempts to sever your trust in your own perception. According to Carl Jung's research, this process works because narcissists mix truth with lies so skillfully that you can't distinguish where reality ends and manipulation begins. They'll acknowledge something that did happen, then twist the context, the emotions, or the consequences until you're completely disoriented. Carl Jung said that individuation, becoming your authentic self, requires an unshakable connection to your inner truth. Narcissists attack this very foundation. They make you doubt your feelings, your memories, your intuition, your very sanity. They systematically turn your own mind against you until you become dependent on them to tell you what's real. But here's the part that will make your skin crawl, and this explains why it's so hard to leave, why you keep going back, why you feel addicted to someone who hurts you. Carl Jung identified that humans have an innate drive for connection and meaning. According to Carl Jung's understanding of human attachment, we're biologically wired to seek bonds even in harmful relationships. Narcissists hijack this fundamental drive through what Jung would recognize as psychological manipulation of our deepest needs. They create what psychologists now call trauma bonding, an intense cycle of love and punishment that literally rewires your brain. Carl Jung discovered that intermittent reinforcement creates the strongest psychological bonds. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly at peace around this person? When did you stop walking on eggshells? The narcissist becomes both the disease and the cure, the poison and the antidote. According to Carl Jung, they unconsciously identify your childhood wounds and then alternately soothe and reopen them. Carl Jung said that we unconsciously seek to heal our early traumas through our adult relationships. Narcissists are masters at identifying these vulnerable spots in your psyche. They study your triggers, your insecurities, your deepest fears, and then they weaponize this intimate knowledge against you. According to Carl Jung's observations, this creates a psychological dependency that feels almost impossible to break. You become addicted not to them, but to the relief they occasionally provide from the very pain they're causing. It's a closed-loop system designed to keep you trapped in their psychological web. What if I told you that some people literally feed off your emotional energy like psychological vampires? Carl Jung's research reveals exactly how this terrifying process works. According to Carl Jung, every human interaction involves an exchange of psychic energy. In healthy relationships, this exchange is mutual and nourishing. But Carl Jung discovered that some individuals function as emotional parasites. They consume your energy while giving nothing genuine in return. Jung observed that they do this through manufactured drama, constant crises, and emotional manipulation. They keep you in a state of constant reactivity because your emotional responses literally fuel their psychological system. Notice how exhausted you feel after spending time with them. Carl Jung would tell you that's not coincidence, that's extraction. Your anger, your tears, your frustration, it's all narcissistic supply to them. According to Carl Jung's understanding of psychic energy, narcissists create chaos not because they enjoy conflict for its own sake, but because your emotional reactions to their chaos feed their desperate need for attention and control. Carl Jung discovered that they become addicted to your emotional responses. They'll push your buttons, create emergencies, manufacture crises, all to generate the emotional intensity they crave. When you're calm and centered, they can't feed off your energy. So they ensure you're never calm for long. Think about the patterns. Just when things start feeling peaceful, something dramatic happens. Just when you begin to heal, a new crisis emerges. Carl Jung would recognize this as the narcissist's unconscious attempt to maintain their psychological food source, your emotional reactivity. Here's where it gets truly dangerous, and every person needs to understand this psychological trap that Jung identified. Carl Jung emphasized that community and authentic relationships are essential for psychological health. According to Carl Jung's research, isolation makes people exponentially more susceptible to psychological manipulation and control. Narcissists systematically destroy your connections to others. They don't do this through obvious force, they're far too cunning for that. Instead, they subtly turn you against your friends and family. They create conflicts between you and your support system. Carl Jung called this process psychological imprisonment, where the victim becomes completely dependent on their abuser for their sense of reality and self-worth. When was the last time you felt comfortable talking to friends about this relationship? When did you start making excuses for their behavior? Jung would recognize these as signs that your psychological freedom is being systematically eroded. According to Carl Jung's observations, narcissists accomplish this isolation through several insidious methods. They'll make subtle comments about your friends. They don't really understand you like I do. They'll create scheduling conflicts that force you to choose between them and others. They'll manufacture emergencies during important social events. Carl Jung discovered that they make you complicit in your own isolation. They don't forbid you from seeing others, that would be too obvious. Instead, they make every social interaction so difficult, so guilt-inducing, so exhausting, that you eventually choose isolation to avoid the conflict. According to Carl Jung, this isolation serves a crucial purpose in their psychological game. When you have no external reality checks, when you have no one else's perspective to compare against theirs, their version of reality becomes the only reality you know. But here's what narcissists desperately don't want you to discover, and this is where Carl Jung's wisdom becomes your most powerful weapon. Carl Jung said that consciousness is the ultimate antidote to unconscious manipulation. According to Carl Jung, the moment you can see their tactics clearly, you begin to break free from their psychological control. Jung discovered something that will shock you: narcissists are actually incredibly fragile. Their entire system depends on keeping you unconscious of their methods, unaware of their game. When you stop reacting emotionally to their provocations, when you stop trying to convince them of your reality, when you stop seeking their approval, according to Carl Jung, their power over you simply evaporates. Carl Jung revealed a truth that will completely shift your perspective on these relationships, and once you understand this, you'll never see them the same way again. According to Carl Jung, narcissists need you far more than you need them. They need your energy, your reactions, your validation to maintain their false identity. You are not dependent on them, they are psychologically dependent on you. Carl Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. Narcissists try to prevent this individuation, this becoming of your authentic self, because your genuine identity threatens their control. But once you understand their game, once you see through their psychological mask, once you reclaim your own reality, Jung would tell you they become powerless. Here's the final revelation that Carl Jung discovered about these psychological predators, and this will set you free. The person who seemed so intimidating, so controlling, so overwhelming, is revealed to be exactly what Carl Jung suspected they always were: a frightened child hiding behind a psychological costume, desperately trying to avoid facing their own emptiness. According to Carl Jung, your awareness is their kryptonite. Your boundaries are your freedom. Your authentic self is their worst nightmare. Carl Jung discovered that the power was always yours. The narcissist's entire game depends on you not knowing this truth. When you stop playing their game, when you stop feeding their psychological hunger, when you reclaim your connection to your own inner knowing, the spell is broken. Carl Jung said that, who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakens. The narcissist wants you to keep looking outside, to keep seeking their approval, to keep questioning your own reality. But now you know the truth. According to Carl Jung, your awakening is their greatest fear. Your consciousness is your liberation. The person you thought held all the power over you has just been revealed as completely powerless without your participation in their psychological theater. Carl Jung's final gift to you: you were never the victim of their strength, you were the unwitting enabler of their weakness. And now that you know, everything changes. The power was always yours. Now you know how to use it. Remember to subscribe and share this revelation with someone who needs to hear Carl Jung's life-changing insights. Your awareness could be their liberation.